So one of you beautiful subscribers just sent me a question: why are the houses in Macon cheaper than Warner Robins? Well, I'm going to answer that with a video. So if you're moving to the Middle Georgia area and you're trying to decide whether you want to live in Warner Robins or live in Macon, then we're going to get into Macon versus Warner Robins so you can decide for yourself where you want to make home. So let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Chris, your real estate problem solver. I've been a real estate investor and an agent in the Middle Georgia area for over 20 years. So I know the ins and outs of the real estate market in Middle Georgia. So if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to me. My information is in the description below. Let's get into living in Macon versus Warner Robins. Of course, we're going to start with Macon because age before beauty. So Macon has been around since the early 1800s when General Sherman came through and his burning of everything in the Confederacy all the way down to Savannah. So now, of course, there was a few different houses that did not get burned up during his march to Savannah, and those are in the downtown historical districts of Macon. So if you have any interest in South Georgia or Middle Georgia histories, then Macon is definitely a place that you want to be in. The nostalgia, the structures, the architecture is just absolutely phenomenal, so you don't want to miss it. And if you have any interest in it, of course, you want to live there so you can soak it all up. Now, in addition to Macon having such a rich historical history, you also will see that Macon is more of a traditional city. So yeah, you go to Atlanta, you go to Charlotte, you're going to see the tall buildings and the new skyscrapers and all that. Macon is not quite that far along, but they do have the industry, they do have the historical structures that are 10, 12, 14 stories tall. So if you want to live in a more of a metro area, then Macon is definitely going to be the place that you want to go, especially around Mercer University. If you're in the medical industry, Navicent Health is going to be right in downtown, so it would be more conducive for you to live in Macon. But the question that I was asked is, why are the housing prices cheaper in Macon? Well, let's answer that. The real estate in Macon is a lot different than the real estate in Warner Robins. Because there are 8 historical districts. So a lot of the real estate that is in Macon is going to be either historical or aged. And unfortunately, unless you're looking at the downtown historical mansions that are, $1 and $2 million and extravagantly laid out with the architecture and professionally kept up, you're probably going to be paying a little bit less per square foot. So the older houses, unfortunately, just don't bring the same price as a brand new house would. But there's a caveat to that. You go into Westland Hills or a little further north in Bolingbrook on the north side of Macon. Now those areas have been developed and built up over the years from a lot of people that are coming down from Atlanta. So you've got Atlanta money living down here and commuting to Atlanta because, of course, they like having the equestrian farm style homes down here. They've got room to have a small farm. You can get a bigger house for the same dollar than you can in Atlanta. And again, the houses are a little bit cheaper because location, location, location. Macon doesn't have quite as much of the population for jobs as, say, Atlanta or Warner Robins. Now, you are closer to Atlanta, but at the same time, are you going to pay the same price for a house close to work or farther from work? There you go. So a lot of the people that are living in Macon also work at Robins Air Force Base, which is in Warner Robins. Well, if they could get a $500,000 house in Warner Robins and drive 20 minutes to work, or they get the same house for $400,000 in Macon and drive 20 or 30 minutes to work, which would you choose? There you go. So you can get more house for the same dollar in Macon and just have to drive a little bit farther to work. Another point about Macon is it is more of what you would consider to be a traditional downtown city. You've got 5, 6, 7, 10-story buildings. You've got textile mills. You've got industry. You've got what looks like a traditional downtown. Not so much with Warner Robins. There's probably maybe a dozen buildings in Warner Robins that are over 2 stories tall. So everything is pretty much on ground level. So with Macon, you've got your Navicent Health, you've got the main airport, you have warehouses on I-75 for Amazon, Betty Crocker, Tractor Supply. So there's a lot more industry in Macon than there is in Warner Robins. Another point about Macon that you might like is it's a little bit closer to Atlanta. Okay, because Atlanta is from Macon is only like 90 minutes. When we were in the Macon area, we could get to the Atlanta airport in about 90 minutes. We would go to our investors group meetings at some of the hotels up there, and then we would come back to Macon and stay the night. So if you do a lot of business with Atlanta, but you don't want to be in Atlanta, then Macon is definitely the place you want to look at. Now, of course, Macon has gotten a little bit of a reputation. Well, no, it's a pretty big reputation for being run down or having a high crime rate. Okay, so let me put a little bit of spin on this. Yes, Macon has a high crime rate in certain areas. Now, if you stay on the south side of Macon, that's where the majority of the issues that has gained Macon's reputation is coming from. South Macon is probably not going to be the preferable area for you to go if you're looking for nice, comfortable, and safe for the kids. Now, if you want to be in the city with a nice house and a nice yard, north of Hillcrest or Vineville, those areas are some beautiful neighborhoods, some beautiful houses. They're not all stamped out, they're not all the same. Every one of them has its own character to it. And then the further north you go, like Zebulon Road, Bass Road, those areas are where you're going to find your newer, nicer houses. A lot of them are on half-acre or three-quarter-acre lots. They have, some of them even have kind of a makeshift ranch style feel to them. And if you go a little bit farther north towards Westland Hills or Bolingbrook, that's where you're going to find a lot of your high-end luxury homes on anywhere from a third acre all the way up to 2 and 3 acres, and finding the horse farms than the equestrian specialists that like to do business in Atlanta, but there again, they don't want to be in Atlanta. Like I said, when you get into the heart of Macon, you're going to see that it's more of the traditional city that you come to expect from a city that is as old as Macon is. You've got 8 historical districts, you've got the cobblestone streets, you've got the old buildings next to the new buildings. You've got areas that have been redeveloped, and Macon has made a lot of strides with their Second Street project and a couple other city granted projects that have built up the business and the small communities in the metro area of Macon. Also, part of some of those grants and projects and rehabilitation programs that they've been implementing, a lot of the old textile mills, a lot of the old factories that were in downtown Macon have now been converted into small offices and shops in the lower areas, and then they put apartments in the upper levels, which they rent out as 1 and 2 bedroom studios. So downtown has really picked up a lot of its nightlife. It's picked up a lot of its foot traffic. There's a lot more commerce. So if you're not a country boy like me, then downtown Macon might be a little bit more exciting and might be a little bit more conducive to your style of living. As a matter of fact, we've got a landlord that we rent their house in Warner Robins. They moved up to Macon and got a loft apartment because it was just too boring in Warner Robins. He wanted a little bit more action. He wanted a little bit more nightlife, so that's what he did. So if you're like that, then Macon might be the place for you. All right, so now let's look at the real estate in Warner Robins, Bonaire, Kathleen area. And yes, I'm saying all three because if you can draw a line around Kathleen, Bonaire, and Warner Robins and separate them without the help of a Google map, then you're doing real good. Most people around here consider all three of them to be one of the same. So the real estate in Macon, let's look at that. Again, like I said, the price per square foot is a little bit higher because Warner Robins is the first area that got developed in the 1940s when Robins Air Force Base came on the scene and became the Army Air Corps. Since then, C5 has come into Warner Robins in 1998 and brought in the C5 program along with about 4,000 or 5,000 new jobs. which built up Warner Robins, and the overflow from Warner Robins went into Kathleen and Bonaire. And like I've said on other videos, that is why that most of Warner Robins, Bonaire, Kathleen areas are fairly new. They're less than 20 years, so you've got the newest and the greatest in these areas. There's not a lot of historical districts in this area, and there's not much past 1970, 1960. Anything older than 1960 it'd be hard to find, because almost everything else has been replaced by newer, nicer houses, more modern houses. I won't say nicer because I'm kind of a historic buff, so I like the older stuff. But the newer stuff is going to be here, and the newer stuff is going to be more expensive. Of course, you buy a computer every 3 years because you want the latest and greatest, don't you? You buy a new car because you want the latest and greatest, and you're going to pay for it, right? Right. So now, other part of Warner Robins is being newer. It's also close to Robins Air Force Base, which houses probably about 16,000 jobs roughly. So that's a lot of people. So with that being said, you've got the newer neighborhoods, you've got the newer city, and you got the higher prices. So Warner Robins is going to have a lot of the newer amenities that Macon doesn't necessarily have. Another part is the newer utilities, the newer street layouts. So while Macon was grown up from the early 1800s up until now, going from dirt roads to cobblestone streets, the utilities were, what do you call it? Terracotta. That's it. Macon developing up over the years from the dirt streets to cobblestone streets, utilities that were originally set up with terracotta pipe getting replaced with PVC, the design and the architecture from way back then having to be adjusted and modified to accommodate modern conveniences and modern lifestyles. You've got the old habits getting retrofitted with the new modern lifestyles that people like, and you kind of have to go with what was already there. So you're going to have the streets that are narrow, you're going to have the utilities that are going in the wrong direction that had to be changed. So that just means that Macon has got a lot more different layout because it was originally designed from the early 1800s, 1700s. Warner Robins, on the other hand, was established in early 1940s and built up from there. So Warner Robins utilities, Warner Robins streets, Warner Robins layout, Warner Robins infrastructure has all been laid out in the last 40 or 50 years. So it's got more of a modern feel. It's got more accommodations for the lifestyle that we live today. Now you know what the difference between Macon and Warner Robins is. If you're looking more for the military, the new age, the latest and greatest, then Warner Robins and Kathleen Bonaire area is going to be more conducive to your lifestyle. So I hope this information helps. Make sure to check out the rest of the playlist to get a more well-rounded idea of where you want to be when you move to Middle Georgia. And I'll talk to you on the next video.